Hi everyone, welcome to this recorded conversation. We're going to be talking about first assessments and how best to approach them. My name's Lorrae Fox and I'm one of the academic skills advisors here at Napier, and I'm joined by Shannon. Shannon, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Shannon. I'm a fourth year marketing and digital media student here at Napier, and I'm also a student ambassador.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Shannon. So we're just going to have a little bit of a chat about first assessments, how to approach them, some of the challenges, and also we're going to be sharing some resources to help navigate those challenges as well. So Shannon, from your experience, what would you say was a particular challenge around first assessments? And if you've got any top tips that you would like to share with other students?
So probably my biggest challenge coming to university, when you'd first get like your assessment brief, it could be a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot of information to take in, and especially as someone who had been out of education for a couple of years, there was a lot. And so definitely just dealing with that overwhelm is something that felt like quite a big issue. So to combat that, my biggest piece of advice would obviously get yourself organized. I love a to-do list personally. Go through your brief or your assignment, whatever it is that you're looking at, and ask your lecturers for help. It's so easy to feel like you can't do that, or to feel like your question might be a little bit stupid, but there is no stupid questions at all. So I highly recommend either emailing your lecturer or grabbing them after your tutorial or whatever, and just asking if you can go through a couple questions about the assignment. Even asking in class is absolutely fine as well, because 9 times out of 10 there'll be other students in that room who are also thinking the same things and have the same kind of questions. And you've probably helped them out too. I also recommend looking at different resources, so for things like academic skills, and also the library as well. I know one that I really used a lot, and I still use even as a fourth year today, is the library's referencing guide for APA referencing. Like, I'm in fourth year now and I'm still constantly checking it to make sure that my references are all okay. But yeah, I 100% just say ask for help, look through the resources you've been given, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Fantastic. Yeah, that referencing guide is wonderful. It's my most
They
visited website, I think.
Wonderful. What kind of challenges and things do you get asked about in academic skills? What things come up most frequently for you?
I think at this point in the trimester, so we're still quite early on, and I think it's sort of questions sort of change as time goes on, but at this point I'd sort of agree with you about sort of overwhelm and managing overwhelm and feeling sort of like this immense pressure with this, you know, sort of like the new way of doing things, like being at university, especially if you've been out of education for a little while, or it's just very different to school as well, or college.
Yeah.
I quite often have sort of one-to-one support with students, sort of like talking about managing that overwhelm. And one piece of advice that I give is to keep in mind that this is the first assessment, and so keep in mind the expectations of that. When you get that first assessment, like you were saying, it's usually right at the start of the trimester, and it can feel quite overwhelming. Like, how am I actually going to get to this end product, this thing that I'm going to submit? And that can feel quite scary. So just keeping in mind that the actual process of doing assessments is part of your learning journey at university, and figuring it out as you go along is hugely important and valuable, especially if it's something that is research based. So if you're doing an essay, for example, and you needed to do a lot of reading and finding sources and evidence, that's all part of that process. So there's no expectation to know exactly how to do everything on day one or week 4 or wherever it might be. It's a case of bringing everything together as part of that learning. And then sort of like the second piece of advice I would give is quite related to that, is approaching your first assessment with a lot of like great empathy for yourself as well. This is the first time you're doing it. The first time, I love a metaphor, the first time you made a cup of tea, it may not have been the perfect cup of tea. You may have overbrewed it, put too much milk in, added 6 sugars and it was too sweet, whatever it may be. So just sort of like approach this as an opportunity to set the baseline and see where you're at. You'll get feedback, and always reach out and get as much feedback as you can as well with things like formative assessments, where they're low stakes assessments, and you'll get feedback on those but no mark. Or reach out to the academic skills team who can help support giving feedback on things like your writing as well, and making sure that you're engaging well with your assessments. So yeah, that would be sort of like my recommendations, thinking of this as an opportunity to learn from this first assessment. I don't know about you, Shannon, but did you find it quite helpful to have a look at the feedback from your first assessment moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, all your lecturers know that this is your first assignment. They know this. They know that you haven't came into university with all the necessary skills to write a university level essay or to know how to reference. You might be coming from a few years out of education or from college or school where things are written very differently. And so it's on your first assessment is almost like a practice run, and where, like you were saying, you can see where your baseline is, see where you're at. And I think looking through feedback is so important, because then that teaches you what you've done well and what you need to improve on for the next one. I always recommend talking to lecturers about your feedback, if you have any questions or want them to clarify anything, or go to academic skills as well, get them to read through it and to help give you pointers, especially on things that your lecturers have maybe pointed out that isn't quite right or you need to try differently. The team can really help you figure that out and show you how to do it.
Fantastic, thank you. So just to sort of wrap up our conversation today, I wanted to just have a quick chat about some further resources. So as Shannon's mentioned, we do have our academic skills resources, which have a variety of different types of resources. So there's videos on there, in particular about tackling assessments for the first time. We have a whole series on those. We also have a blog as well, which has things like an assessment toolkit, which helps to walk you through the variety of different support that's available at Napier, because there's a huge amount of support available here. And we also have a peer study advice resource as well, where you can find out what some of your peers have to say about what do they wish they'd known earlier. And in particular, they talk about assessments as well as study skills and sort of finding information and sort of settling in to university as a whole as well. So if you want to hear more from others, that is also another resource. So I think that's about it from us today. Thank you very much for joining, and all the best with those first assessments.
Good luck.